on the road here bolsters the belief that this has been a good start to the season. But on the flip side, the backside of that, if you lay an egg, then everybody looks at the first 3 games completely differently than the way you do right now. So it is an important game for both teams. Tennessee, too, looking to get well at your expense. So let's talk about it. You can talk about it with us. Facebook.com/TheSportsFix. Tweet with us at TheSportsFix, CLE, all one word. Email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. We're going to let the boys be boys. Go to the phone lines with my boy, Jeff Gorman from Browns101.com. Jeff, how you doing this Friday afternoon?
I'm doing great, Fri Oct. I'm driving around in the rain in my hometown of downtown. I'm thinking about the Browns and the Titans, and it's, we look at this game as, hey, your eyes get big. It's like, hey, this is the chance we can win one. But, the Titans are looking at us thinking the same thing.
Absolutely. That's what I mean by the old expression, you don't want to make yourself well at your own expense here. You don't want to help make another team well, and that's what the Browns are looking to avoid doing here when they take on the Tennessee Titans. And let's start there. I mean, obviously, with both teams, with the Browns, we would start by looking at the quarterback. That's the leader. And I mentioned with J.K. that I do think that him being a steadying presence is going to help going on the road here today, plus perhaps some familiarity with Ray Horton's schemes. But let's start with Tennessee because we're looking at that side with you. Quarterback, Jake Locker, obviously a different quarterback than Charlie Whitehurst. It looks like, all reports to me look like Locker's going to be the one to be the quarterback this weekend time decision. What's the latest you've heard on who's going to start under center for the Titans?
Pretty much it's going to be Locker, and that's really a good thing for the Titans because I don't think that they really have a whole lot of a chance with Whitehurst in there. He's had a few chances in his career to show that he can, start or even start once or twice, and it really hasn't worked out. And you look at Locker, and it's really kind of pretty much if he goes, so goes the team. I mean, he had a really good game in that opener against the Chiefs, and that game was really looking kind of like a mirage. I mean, they went into Kansas City and beat them 26-10, and I was like, wow, that was pretty good. Then they just got clobbered the last 3 weeks, and of course, Locker threw 4 interceptions in the 2 games that he did play, and then of course he didn't play last week when they had Whitehurst and even Zach Mettenberger in there. So it looks like great start for him. He's going to be trying to just kind of get himself well, and we have to hope that we can't come back in really, very stellar fashion.
Too, talking about that, when you look at that, I mean, obvious in how they're going to go, but either offensively about the Titans, but I think their key defensively is going to be first thing in the game. I know, we're focusing on Jake Locker and running that offense, but Tennessee has been, and this is a problem that we've had for years here with the Cleveland teams, but unable offensively to get any points in the first quarter. Locker and that offense are going to want to start fast here against the Browns defense. And flip side, defensively, teams have already scored 27 points thus far in the first quarter to none for the Titans there. So key to the Browns is to try to get on the board early, but offensively for Locker and for that Titans offense, you want to try to score early because they've obviously put themselves in a hole early, and more times than not, that has not worked out for them so far.
Right. It's really taken away one of their best weapons, which is the running game. It's funny because they've got a pretty good running game, but they always end up abandoning it because they're in too big of a hole. I mean, the last 3 games that they've lost to the Colts and the Bengals and the Cowboys, they've fallen behind like 16-0, 19-0, and they've had to cut loose the running game. One time they only ran the ball 13 times, and then you look at their stats, when they run the ball, they're getting 5 yards a pop. I mean, that's their average. They average 5 yards a carry, but they've only run the ball 95 times in those first 4 games. So that's like less than 25 a carry. So what happens is they're not keeping the ball moving. They're not keeping the clock moving. Their offense is getting on the field, and then unfortunately for them, getting right off the field. And by the end of the game, their defense is really gassed. So we have to pretty much try to keep that trend going. It's going to be very important for, the Browns to start fast on offense. But I think really, you look at this entire game, I think if you can break it down to one thing, I think the defense, the Browns defense, has to pitch a shutout in the first half, just like has been happening to the Titans before. If the Browns can keep the Titans off the scoreboard in the first half, then they really won't be able to come back because they're going to abandon their good running game, and then it's all going to go downhill from them. So I think that that's something you have to look at. See if the Browns, with all their macho posturing and, yeah, we're going to be tough and play like a Brown, this is the team that you have to do it against. I know it's been tough going against the Steelers and the Ravens and the Saints. This is your chance to go up against a guy who is not a Super Bowl winning quarterback for the first time this season. So this is when the Browns defense really has to make the reputation and just really lay a hurting on the Titans.
I agree with you 100% there. You mentioned that rushing attack with 5 yards a carry. That's clearly been the Achilles heel of this Browns defense through their beginning of the season, getting gashed by the run. You've got a very competent stable of backs there for Tennessee. You got Sean Green. We talked about this earlier in the week. Bishop Sankey. You've got, McCluster. You've got Washington. You've got guys there. They've got, obviously, Locker brings a little bit of that with his feet as well as the quarterback. He moves around a little bit. Not a ton. He's not the, most fleet of foot, but even he's averaging 5 yards a carry when he scrambles out and gets out of there. So, you definitely, if you're the Browns, hopefully what they've been working on during the bye week, staying home, staying with what your assignment is on the defense, not trying to do too much. I'm going to be interested to see how this Browns defense does against the rushing attack, which Tennessee definitely has the guys able to go. I mean, a lot of people have expected, an explosion here in the early part of the season from Bishop Sankey that hasn't really happened yet. But, when you're facing a team, just like we talk about, I mean, we're looking at the Browns schedule, and Mike Pettin has stressed this all week. You don't think that Tennessee, after the last 3 weeks, has not looked at Cleveland and Jacksonville and said, man, okay, here's a chance for us to catch our breath and get ourselves straightened out as well. That is going to be a desperate team over there, trying to avoid. There's a huge difference between being 2-3 and 1-4 in the NFL, and they know that, and they're going to be looking to do whatever they've got to do to stop that there. And looking at the receivers, because there's something else too. We've been talking throughout the week here. We know there's been a lot of focus early on the Browns' defensive backs. They're going to have their work cut out for them as well. I mean, not only with the receivers, Kendall Wright and Justin Hunter, but, I mean, you've got Delanie Walker, who to me is quietly become one of the best tight ends in the NFL.
That's right. Delanie Walker's really been their go-to guy. He's a leading receiver as far as receptions and also in touchdowns. He has 3 touchdowns in the first 4 games. So he's somebody they're really going to have to shut down. And this is going to be, again, we talk about a reputation-making game for the Browns defense. This is where, Joe Hayden has to step up and really have a good game and not get torched. And, again, he's not going against people who are that, known as being some of the absolute, we're not talking about the absolute elite receivers in the league here. We're talking about good guys like the ones that you mentioned. But, this is where Hayden has to step up and show that he's at a Pro Bowl caliber right there. And and then hope that the safeties will be able to contain Walker and keep him from getting loose. And also, Locker has been sacked already 8 times this year, so getting pressure on him is going to be very important too. So I think in a big way, I think the Browns offense is also going to have to, keep their running game moving in order to cut down on the possessions of the Titans. And so it's really all going to have to pretty much work together. I think it's going to, like I mentioned on the last game a couple weeks ago, it's going to start out being kind of a ground battle, and that's what the Browns are going to have to do, is win the ground battle and force the Titans to throw the ball, and then the Browns defense has to force Jake Locker into mistakes. And he's made some mistakes.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, they'll have an extra set of legs for that too with Ben Tate coming back. You brought that up with the sacks. I mean, Locker in his time, he's averaged nearly 3 times a game that the defense has gotten through and gotten to him. So, and even Whitehurst last week was sacked 3 times. So that defense they've given up 11 or that offensive line, has given up 11 sacks to the defense through their first 4 games, nearly 3 a game. So they're a chance too to get after them, get up front, get those guys after them, control the line of scrimmage and do it early. I'm with you. I think the Browns need to pitch a shutout in the first half. I mean, make this team that's already coming in scrambling, make them scramble early. Make them go not again. That's what teams do to bad teams. It's what teams have done to the Browns for so long. When, every team comes into a game thinking they've got a chance to win, but in one quarter, you can have that team on the sidelines going, oh boy, here we go again. And, that's what you've got to do. If you're the Browns, you've got to have the Titans going into halftime going, man, what's going on? Here we go again. And that's going to be how you do it, by controlling the line of scrimmage. Defensively, too, obviously, they've got some guys who have been able to get after the quarterback here. Not a ton. I mean, they've got 8 sacks through the first couple of games. Nobody really explosive, but, defensively as well. The Browns are going to have some opportunities. But, hey, Ray Horton, it is a solid scheme. I'm not one of those guys that's just going to say, hey, now that Ray Horton's not here, his defense was just completely overrated. I think he told you more stats about how good his defense was than how it was actually playing on the field. But Ray Horton's a very good defensive coordinator, and he's definitely going to be, not that you don't need more motivation. I always laugh about motivation because you're getting paid to win in the NFL. You're not going out there like, well, I'm going to try harder against the Browns because they cut me loose. But he does have that burning inside too, that that was where he was last year, and now obviously you want to go show him that they made a mistake.
Yeah, and you talk about you talk about your team and the strengths of your team. You talk about Ben Tate coming back, and now you're in a situation where you've got a pretty strong stable of running backs, considering how well that Terrence West and Isaiah Crowell did. So you can say, this is something we're going to capitalize on. Get some, they're going to start Ben Tate and, get him rolling, but, switch things up with some fresh legs in there, hopefully throughout the game. And, this is part of, changing the culture of your team, establishing your identity. If we can keep the ball moving on the ground and take away those opportunities for Locker to even get on the field, then that's really going to help. And it's going to take a lot of pressure off of Hoyer, too, because Hoyer, like you mentioned, hasn't thrown any interceptions this year. If you can get a situation where he's throwing in some very nice high-percentage situations, that's really going to help him. Of course, we're kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, as you and JK were talking about, as far as, this isn't going to last forever, but you have to hope that, you can keep those turnovers down, because the Titans are a team that has, coughed the ball up, especially through the air, and they've made a lot of penalties, too. So, you also talked about them saying, oh, no, not again. And that's also something that could happen to the crowd, because, what you want to do is you want to take the Titans' home field advantage away from them, because it's already been established that they've had kind of some tepid crowd support. And they were, Bernard Pollard was talking about that. He says, you know what? I don't blame them. I wouldn't cheer for us either.
And that was something I had in my notes here I wanted to bring up with you. That's another reason why offensively the Browns want to try to strike early in this, because of that. With the fans, the Boo Birds are going to be out early. If you quickly put the Titans in a 7, 10, 13, 14-point hole, that's going to be an unhappy crowd. And you have now silenced the road crowd and even turned them against the home team. They may not turn for you, but they're going to turn against the home team. We have seen how that happens here in Cleveland. And, everything that we're saying, because there's some people that hit me up and they go, man, I'm so tired of hearing people say, well, until the Browns, and the Browns should be tired of it too, because this is how you change it. This is how you make people like you and I stop saying, well, the other side of it is. You go win these games, because you win a couple of these, and all of a sudden we go, well, actually they've won the last 5 on the road, so all of a sudden we can't say the old lines, the old statistics, the old et cetera. Saying, like I brought up about that opening day statistic, like, hey, when you win a couple of them in a row, all of a sudden, it doesn't sound anywhere near as impressive to say, they were 1-10, but now they've won the last 3. You start to take the edge, and then all of a sudden that doesn't get said. You've got to go do it. I can't do it. Jeff Gorman can't do it. Nobody else. Browns have to go out and do it. If they don't, this continues. And if they do, then you start to erase that. So, I mean, that's truly the onus, and that's hopefully the way they're looking at it. I hope they're not looking at Pittsburgh, Jacksonville, all these teams coming up. I hope they're just looking at the Titans and going, man, let's just make their season a little bit more miserable today.
Right. You look at the upcoming schedule and say, hey, they could get this rolling, but you know what? It can't start unless you win that first one. And it's a winnable game. And, you look at the talent on both sides, and I just think that actually, it's rare to say this, but I think our talent actually outshines theirs, especially, we've got Tate coming back, we've got Cameron coming back, and I just think that on the field, we've got better talent than them, and it's just going to be a matter of executing and not making mistakes. And, in order to change the narrative and to sort of get over all these, long-time depressing statistics, you got to do it one game at a time. You got to, like you said, you got to win